Debbie's clearly got longer legs than me and doesn't need step ladders to get onto the stool. But anyway, Debbie, it's great to have you. Where have you come from today?
I've come from Henley-on-Thames, which is where I now
you
live.
haven't got a striped jacket.
No, not today. Just my rowing kit.
Right. And home for you originally is?
Home for me is Guiseley in Yorkshire. Grew up there.
So actually, we're near neighbours, aren't we? We're just 2 or 3 miles apart. So you're a Yorkshire lass. Actually, I could feel the sophistication and the sort of cultural vibes. So yes, it's, Debbie, it really is good to have you. Thank you very much. I just want to go back over your life story, and we've advertised you as an Olympic rower. Now, I know from our area there are not exactly wide, slow-flowing rivers along which to row in West Yorkshire, are there? So how did you get into rowing?
Yeah, not really. There's more rapids and bends, really,
Yes.
in Yorkshire. But rowing just kind of popped into my life. But before I started rowing, I loved doing sport. My mum and dad were both really sporty and actively encouraged me and my brother to be outside, using up our energy doing sport. So running was my first love. And then I got involved in the judo team, went to school in quite a rough area, so my parents were keen that we could look after ourselves.
Right.
And actually through the judo, I used to use the rowing machine, just as part of our fitness. And someone came up to me in the gym and said, "Oh, are you a rower?" And I was like, no, what's a rower? I'd never noticed it on the television. I'd never been on a paddle boat on the river. For me, the Olympics was all about, track and field, and that's what I loved watching. And, I used to watch the Olympics and think, wow, they're superhuman. It was like another world away. But also I knew that sport was something I was really passionate about, and, I was kind of pursuing sport to see, what I might be good at. So after someone said, well, you're doing really well on the rowing machine, I thought, oh, okay, well, I'll give that a go.
Now, when you said you'll give it a go in your mind, did you ever dream of, never mind imagine, but dream of that you might one day be an Olympic rower?
I think to start off with, I was thinking, well, let's see if this could be my sport. But, the realities of, the time and the just the life that I had within the rowing team, I could never have imagined that at all. My life plan was just to, do some sport for a few years, go to the Olympics, and then get on with the rest of my life. So it was a real short-term kind of thing for me, and loving the sport at the time. And, I thought rowing would be really easy. I thought, yeah, I'll go and row up and down the river, see how it goes. And little did I know how difficult and technical it actually is. And I pretty much spent my first week swimming because I fell in so much.
Because they're very low, aren't they, your boats, and very light?
Yeah, they're very, and a single, which is what I would have learnt in, is probably from that little bit of wall there, probably almost as long as to this bit of wall here, and this wide. They're so unstable.
Right.
Yeah, and
amazing.
Coordination and balance wasn't necessarily my thing, so.
Right, and at the height, the pinnacle of your Olympic career, how many hours a day were you practicing, training?
Yeah, so we would train 3 times a day. So we'd be on the water twice in the morning, and then in the afternoon we'd be either in the gym doing weights or on the rowing machine. And we only got 3 weeks off a year. So we trained throughout the year because in the winter we had trials and training, and then April was our final trials, and then we went into our summer season. So we would have 3 weeks off after the World Championships or after the Olympics, which was, if it wasn't an Olympic year, we had the World Championships each summer. Apart from that, we would have a day off if we've raced, or sometimes if we were very fortunate, we'd be travelling in the middle of the day, so we'd get the day off there as well. But no weekends, no lie-ins.
When you say 3 times a day, how long is a time?
A training session would last between an hour and a half, an hour and 40 minutes, so about 100 minutes.
Wow.
Not including stretching, warming up, warming down.
And was your body sort of screaming out and saying, give me a break?
Oh, the whole point of your training is to push your body to the limits, to adapt and to get fitter and get stronger. Often you push yourself over the edge and then the physios put you back together. But I remember the new girls coming into the team and saying, "Debbie, I'm so tired today." And I'd say, "Don't worry, you get used to that." Because it just becomes part of your, you learn to get up in the morning and to go training, and you're just kind of trusting that when you wind down for a race and you kind of, the volume decreases, that you'll start to feel like you've got energy then,
And is there a sort of strict regime about what you can or should eat?
Yes, we have to eat lots.
Do you? Oh,
Yeah.
That would suit.
Yeah.
It's the training that doesn't suit. But anyway, and what do you mean lots?
So I would typically eat 5,000 to 6,000 calories a day. So 2 to 3 times the amount a normal person or a normal recommended value would be. But then if you think we're training 3 times a day, so you're burning off so many calories throughout the day. And, we would drink 8 to 10 litres of water or fluid throughout the day as well, because, you're kind of sweating it out and you need to be hydrated. So you need the energy. Otherwise, actually, you might think we're the fittest people in the world, but we can really run our immune systems down because of how much we're training. So actually, nutrition and hydration is so important and a kind of habit that you have to learn.
Right, now I'm going to come back to your career and see how it unfolded. But you said your parents were sporty, but they were also Christians, or are Christians, they're still alive. So you were brought up to go to church, and so tell us about your home life.
Yeah, so I grew up in a Christian home, and my grandparents were missionaries in Liberia in Africa. So if you'd have asked me when I was a youngster, growing up, if you'd have said, before the age of 15, if you'd have said to me, are you a Christian? Do you believe in God? I would have said, well, yes, my parents are Christians. I go to church on Sundays. But actually, it wasn't until I was 15 that I realized, actually, it's not an automatic thing. It's something that we choose for ourselves. And I didn't quite have the full picture in my head at that point, because I really knew that, God had blessed me with the abilities and the talents and the passion to do sport. And as a 15-year-old, before I started to understand more about who Jesus was, I would say, I've been blessed with these abilities. I was very happy to take them, to take all those things and to use them. That was where I was passionate. I'd kind of finish, come out of Sunday school or come out of the service, and then I'd come alive and I'd go to my sports. But actually, then I realized that God wants a relationship with us. It's not just about, giving us and blessing us with purpose and ability, but he wants a relationship with us. And I realized that I didn't have that because I wasn't even interacting in that at all. And I realized that, none of us can say that we're perfect, and none of us can say that we've never done a wrong thing or thought a wrong thing. And I realized that that separated me from God. I didn't have that unbroken relationship, and God sent us his son Jesus to die on the cross, and that's our gift, a free gift that I just needed to accept and to take to make my relationship with God back to being what it was originally intended to be. So at 15, I asked Jesus to come into my life.
And where was it? What led up to that moment where you actually prayed and asked Jesus to come into your life?
Yeah, it was a gradual understanding of who Jesus was, that he was God's son, and he was sent here into humanity to take on all the wrongdoings, all the things that have gone wrong in the world in our place, really, so that we could have that relationship with God.
Okay, so you're a 15-year-old Christian, and now you're getting involved in the sports world. When did your, as it were, big break, if there is such a thing in rowing, happen?
I was actually terrible to start with. I was not a natural, and I remember coming last in races all the time. And actually one of the coaches came up to me one day and said, look, Debbie, you're doing your A-levels at the moment, and I know you're working hard at school, but you're coming down to the rowing club a lot, and really I don't think you're going to be much more than average club rower. Gutted. For me, the Olympics was my dream as a youngster, and I was being told, actually, you're not going to make it. And I went back home, and my dad said, look, if you enjoy it, the fact is you will improve. Carry on and just see. Obviously, I did carry on, and I got a new coach, and he then put the things, kind of saw that I couldn't row. I was fit enough, but, you can't row, so I'm going to just take you out in the water all the time. And eventually I did get into the junior team, and that really was the start that made me think, right, this is the direction that God's taking me, and this is the direction I'm heading. But then into the senior team, it then took another 7 years before I won my first senior medal. So that was a journey in itself, really.
Well, it is. 7 years is a long, long time to wait when you're young.
Yeah.
But what was the first medal?
So my first medal was in Athens in 2004. That was in a quad, so with 3 other girls. Still best mates now, still really great friendship with the 3 of those girls.
And you were on a podium?
Yeah.
How did that feel the first time?
It's so hard to describe what it feels like on the medal podium. I mean, you finish racing, you have not an ounce of energy or breath left. You kind of collapsed in the boat, and then you kind of get a bit of breath back to kind of celebrate and slap each other on the back and be excited, and the crowd's going crazy, and the Brits are great at supporting. The flags are always everywhere, and you go straight from the end of the race to the press pontoon where they try and interview you. You've got no breath, you can hardly say anything sensible, and then standing on the medal podium, with me at that point with three of my best mates, and hardly a word was said. Because you don't need to. We'd all gone through those 7 years of ups and downs together, so you kind of sharing that experience. It was a wonderful moment. Yeah.
And you got into the World Championships, didn't you? How did you do there?
Yeah. So again, the World Championships. 2007 was my first national anthem, which was very, again, a pretty cool experience to be able to represent your country and see the flag going up and the national anthem playing. It was
and Commonwealth Games.
Yep, Commonwealth Games in Canada as well, so we got a few medals there.
But the biggie is the Olympics, isn't it, for you?
Yeah, I mean, for us, the pinnacle of rowing is the Olympics. So, we would kind of generally say, not that you would give up any medals, but, you would say that you'd swap all your World Championship medals for the Olympic medal, because that's the kind of the pinnacle of our sport as such. And, for me, each race has its own memories and things about it, but actually for us the Olympics is the pinnacle of our sport. Yeah. Now,
you've already talked about the ups and downs. You've had some great successes in the Olympics, and I'd like you to run through them from the first Olympics right through to the last ones, and as it were, describe the ups and the downs, if you will.
Well, actually, Sydney was the first Olympics I went to. Now, I didn't end up competing, I ended up going as a spare, but for me, I left school when I was 18, I finished my A-levels, and my life plan was that I was going to row full-time for 2 years before I went to uni. So I was going to row full-time for 2 years, and then I was going to become a veterinary surgeon. That was my life plan. God had other ideas. And I did. I moved away from home. I trained full-time for 2 years. And in that year, I was trying to do the single at the Sydney Olympics. And in the race-off for that position, I came second, which meant I didn't get selected for the Olympics. And that was tough.
I was going to say, how do you feel? Absolutely dejected.
Yeah, I mean, in that moment, I really questioned God, and I said, why am I here? I've just wasted 2 years of my life, and I haven't achieved what I wanted to achieve. And I was in a really bad place at that point, because my whole kind of 2 years had been focused in towards that, and I had my own plans. And that was my plan, to be there and then get on with life. And actually, at the time, it took my coach to pick me back up and say, look, you've worked hard, you are at a good level, and no, you haven't made the Olympic team, you're not quite there yet, but you can do the Under-23 World Championships and also Henley Royal Regatta, which was a big event within our calendar. And eventually, really to kind of finish the year off, I ended up doing both those events. And I ended up winning the single at the Under-23 World Championships and then winning the single at Henley Royal Regatta. And it was actually one of the highlights of my whole 15-year career. That year was such an incredible year, and it wasn't just about the wins, but I look back on my life at that point and I thought, wow, if I had that choice again, would I choose to go to the Olympics in Sydney, or would I choose to have done those 2 races? I'd have chosen to do those 2 races. And I kind of thought, God, you know so much better than I know. I had my own plans, but actually God's plans were different. It wasn't to row full-time for 2 years and go on and be a veterinary surgeon. It was to row for 15 years and go on to be a prison officer at the time. And that was a real light bulb moment in my life. I mean, I love talking. I could talk all night, and there's lots of different stories around that in terms of the people God, put across my path that were just crazy, crazy stories. I got taken on, and it was just lots of different things I could say about that. But I look back on those 2 years and I thought, yeah, I could see God's hand in all the different ups and downs and in the different places that he brought me. And it just really brought me back to that real realization of God in my life. And I always come back to my favorite Bible passage from that point, which was, trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. And I always come back to that point in my life, because there are times, aren't there, where you just kind of think, why am I here? What is going on? And you can't make sense of the life around you in that moment. And, but I know that God knows. And
we'll come on to Athens in just a moment. You've talked about your faith, and it's very clear. But in the sort of rowing family, I don't know how you describe it, the sort of rowing fraternity, are they aware that you're a Christian?
Yes, I mean, I was very I mean, I could talk forever now, but I was really shy when I first finished school and started rowing. And, I was a bit nervous about going into this big rowing environment. I'd moved away from my friends and family. I was going into the big environment. I knew no one. As a Christian, I didn't know how that was going to be reacted to or taken. And because as a junior, I ended up bursting onto the scene a little bit. I got interviewed for the National Rowing magazine by James Cracknell, who was one of the top guys at the time. And he asked me about my life and about what I did in my spare time. And I'd mentioned that I was a Christian and that I was in my local church on the Sundays and I would help with bits and pieces throughout the week. Not really expecting anything of it. But then this went out in the interview to the whole of the rowing world.
In the magazine?
Yeah, to every single rower in the country.
So they all knew then?
Yeah, but it was such a blessing in the end because it gave opportunity for lots of people to come and ask me questions or to say, oh, I'm a Christian as well. And to really it was just a real blessing. And, within the rowing world and the sports world comes with lots of banter. People would kind of say, oh, it's all right, Debbie's in our boat, that means God's in our boat. And, there was always bits and pieces of banter. But, it's about, for me, it was, God had placed me in that world, and wherever we are, I'm a Christian. I'm not just a Christian on Sundays. I'm a Christian at every single point, in my day and in my life. So, that is where I'm living, and that is where I'm living as a Christian. And I want to share about my faith and about who Jesus is, because actually, it's the most important thing you could ever know.
Absolutely. So Athens, let's come on to that. You did very well at Athens. Let's hear about it.
Athens was wonderful. Like I say, it was my first senior medal. And Germany had won that event since our event started in the Olympics, and they ended up winning that on that day. But we had an amazing time, a real bond as a crew. It was fantastic winning a silver medal. My dream of representing my country and having the honour of that. And also kit-wise, I mean, it's like Christmas. You get kilos and kilos of kit, and you're not allowed to go anywhere without your kit on. So they have to give you enough for the 2 weeks, and it's just so exciting, and to be part of a team as well. I really loved being part of a team and having worked hard together towards that point. So.
And do you have the medal with you?
I do have the medal with me.
Because I know you do have a tendency to lose medals. Let's have a look. You keep this one in a sock.
This is in my Athens sock. Stops it. It is a clean sock. It's a clean sock. It doesn't look very clean, but it is. It looks a bit...
It's got a hole at both ends.
I know. Well, I don't... Yeah.
It's not very wise to have a hole at both... Anyway, never mind.
No,
yes.
It's not,
Let's see the medal.
So the ribbon is it's been through hundreds of hands now. I take it to schools and for assemblies and... so...
It's really quite heavy, isn't it?
So they're made of solid silver, the silver medals as well, so they're heavier than they look, yeah.
And it's got some Greek writing on the back.
It's got ancient Greek on the back, and we had a laurel wreath on our heads as well, which was different.
That's fantastic. So that was the silver, and you were elated?
Yes.
Can I ask, before you row in a competition, do you pray?
I would always pray that, that I just have a great race and that I can do my best.
But don't you pray you'll win, or that the other team's boat will sink? Because I would.
I think, imagine if everyone was Christians in the race, we'd have a few problems, wouldn't we? No, I mean, for me, it's, I long to win. I desire to do well. I desire to win, but I would never pray for that because, that kind of thing is not guaranteed. And in sport, someone is faster than you on the day and they win, so.
All right, so Sydney, Athens, and then Beijing.
Yeah.
All right, so again, you were selected, because I suppose you can't take it for granted that because you rowed last time, you're going to be rowing again.
You can't. I mean, it's tough. I mean, like I say, for 7 months of the year, we're actually competing against each other in the team for places. And you know as a team member that it's tough. And, it's kind of shuffling around. You kind of think that you might be right there, and then you eventually get to final trials. But it's funny because I always remember ringing my parents and saying, oh, I made the team. It's really exciting. They said, of course you did. You won a medal last year, because they don't get that it is each year you go back to the melting pot almost, and it's a kind of free system that anyone has the opportunity to make that team. So you go through all the trialing kind kind of system. Yeah.
All right, but you did get to Beijing.
We did, and we were one of the favourites. Actually, my boat, the Quad, had been world champions the 3 years running up to Beijing Olympics. After we finished in Athens, we were like, right, well, we've got the silver medal, so right, next one, gold medal. So the whole focus was, gold medal attitude, gold medal training, gold medal eating, gold medal resting, gold medal everything, and that was the real focus.
You really believed you would get it?
Well, we trained towards that, and we were actually, when you go in a race, you have to believe that you can win, because otherwise you don't give it all to put yourself in that position. If at any point in the race you think that someone else has won, then your whole body can just, and mindset can just sink, and then you've kind of lost the race almost. So you have to, until you cross the finish line, nothing's set in stone. So, until you cross that finish line, you're absolutely going for it.
So now, Debbie, I'm going to hurt you because we've got film footage of what happened in Beijing. Shall we show it?
Yeah.
The favourites, though, are Great Britain. But it's Great Britain all the way as they head towards the 1,500-metre mark. It's looking, though, that the Chinese are starting to make a move. In 20 strokes, they've managed to overtake, and heading towards the finish line, it looks like the Chinese girls will hit the Great British team at the post. They're picking up their rate, and they will. It's a gold medal for China. Great Britain with the silver.
So now, if you look carefully, you can see the Chinese put an outboard motor on, can't you?
Very different experience. Yeah.
So what happened? How did you come second?
Yeah, I mean, we had a great race. The profile of your race is that you should, you have a middle solid race, and then that you're going faster in that last 500. And we went faster in that last 500. But unfortunately, the Chinese crew went faster than we went faster, and, rode through us in that last bit. And
could you see it happening?
yeah, I mean, because you're in front and you're facing, you're going backwards, so you can see them coming back and coming back and coming back. And even when they passed us, you can't give up. You can't think, well, we've lost it now. You're still going till the finish line. So it's not until that beeper goes and you cross that finish line that you realise where you have placed. And, in that moment, we were absolutely gutted. No words could console us. You saw some pictures on there of us on the medal podium and being interviewed, and we were just disheartened. And
yet you got the same silver that you got last time.
Yeah, before we'd been completely elated. And, I guess our expectations and our drive and our desires were towards becoming Olympic champions. And,
were you angry with God?
No, not at all. I mean, there was a disappointment, and there was the emotions with that, because the emotions of the highs and lows, they're just more extreme, because all your hours and your time is being put into that thing. So when you have disappointments, they're even lower than normal, and when you have the elations, they can be even more than normal. And I will still look back on that race and feel, I do still, wish that we could have become Olympic champions on that day. But, we didn't have an awful race, nothing went wrong. And actually, at the end of the day, that is sport. If someone goes faster than you on the day, then that is sport. But for me, as a Christian, it was very different how I handled that experience as well.
Well, go on, just say a bit more, because it's quite...
Well, one of the girls in our boat, for example, she was broken. She did not recover from that race. She felt a complete failure. She felt like a failure in life. And I think often you see with athletes, and for certain areas of life where you can get immersed in that area, athletes often take their identity in their sport. So if an athlete is winning in their sport, they feel like they're winning in life. And when they're not doing well, they can feel like they're losing in life. And if your identity is in your sport, then you're going to be, tossed around like a wave, depending on, whether you're injured, whether you're doing well, what the media's saying about you. Whereas actually, for a Christian, my identity is not as an athlete. My identity is in God, as a child of God. And actually, the world's view of you can change from... you can be from hero to zero overnight, and the world's view of you can change all the time, depending on what's going on. But God's view of you, it doesn't change. His love does not change. And he, loves me and cares about me, whether I win or lose. A mini example of that is, when I was on that medal podium, actually most of the pictures of me looking across to the right, because I'm desperately searching for my parents in the crowd, because I know as soon as I see them, I'll feel okay, because they love me, know what I'm their child, and they care about me, and they're not bothered whether I've won or whether I've lost. And God, how much more for God, our perfect Heavenly Father, who his love is unchanging, and if I've done something with all my energy and all my heart, then whether I win or lose, it doesn't make any difference.
Did you see your Chinese counterparts at all afterwards?
Well, you see them on the podium. Sorry, they were so tall. They were so tall. They rode really well.
But you didn't bump into them afterwards and say,
No, I couldn't see anything. I was pretty much crying the whole time at the point.
All right, let's move on now to London, and of course that is very, very big for any British Olympian, isn't it? Did you enjoy London?
It was an amazing time. Even from the start of the relay and the crowds and the energy around it, it was just amazing. We row in the first week, and then the second week we can go around and watch other sports. And the atmosphere at each of those other places and surrounding the games, the atmosphere was just so welcoming. It was just a real buzz. All the athletes massively just enjoyed that games. It was a real athlete-focused, everyone enjoying watching sport, cheering for everyone and not just their individual countries. We're very good in this country at supporting sport, and I've been to Olympics before where you've gone to venues and people are only cheering for their own teams, but actually in London, it was just so noisy, it was so loud, and when we raced, I'm the one that does the talking normally in the boat. I don't know why, but I am. And I couldn't even hear myself speaking because the crowds were so noisy. Amazing. It was wonderful.
Now, before we go on to the race, what have we got here?
So I have an Olympic torch here, which if you haven't seen one before, you're very welcome to come and have a look at the end. I was nominated by the rowing team to carry a torch, which was a real, lovely privilege. I was supposed to carry it in Yorkshire, which would have been wonderful.
Right, it would.
But our training camp dates got changed, so I ended up carrying it in Morecambe on the wettest, windiest day ever.
Oh, in Lancashire.
But it's I know, traitor. But it's got 8,000 holes, and that represents the 8,000 miles the flame travelled around the country, and 8,000 people carried a torch. And it's got 3 sides to represent 3 times London have held the games. And I said when I was younger, I used to think Olympians are superhuman. Well, I am, because there's a massive handhold down here showing my supersonic strength. Actually, that's not true.
It's a dent.
Yeah, it's a dent. I'm actually a little bit of a muppet. I did shut it in my car door twice. So it's got a big dent in the bottom. But yeah, and it was, we only got to run for about 600 metres. And, it was so exciting. I wanted to make it last as long as possible. So I basically ran as physically slowly as I possibly could, zigzagging from side to side, high-fiving all the kids down the road. I did look a bit, because they live videoed it and stuff. I looked a bit silly because the security guards either side of me were walking, but I didn't mind. I had more time. It was great.
Now, the London Olympics, I won't go into all the story, but you did get to the final.
We did. Again, after Beijing and our disappointment there, even though it was an amazing result still, but we wanted to carry on. London, home games, wow, that would have been amazing to be Olympic champion there.
And Guiseley would have had a golden pillar box.
I know, yes. I could have brought a golden pillar box to Guiseley. But, in the run-up to London, I ended up getting injured. I fractured my rib 5 weeks before the games. So I wasn't back in the boat until 2 weeks before the games, and it really affected our crew. It affected our confidence, and it affected we weren't as drilled together. And I'd had a back injury earlier in the year, so we hadn't had a lot of time to train together. And in the end, we had some gritty races, and actually to make our final was a real achievement for our crew. We didn't have a good final, which was disappointing.
Now tell us what happened, because it's quite interesting. The paddle or the oar, whatever, went into the water wrongly.
Yeah, so it's called. because not only when you race you're on the edge of your physical capacity, but you're also on the edge of your technical capacity. And if your oar goes in, it should go in square like that and grip hold of the water. But if it goes in diagonally, it just dives down, and it's called catching a crab. We call it dredging the water, and that happened right at the beginning of our race.
Was it you that did that?
It wasn't, no.
And do you feel, I don't know, angst towards the person who did do it?
No, I mean, the first thing we did when we came off the water is we all hugged, and we all, we kind of, dispersed that, because, you're a crew, and it could have been happened because of a number of reasons, because someone else was rowing with flicking their blades up. Obviously we hadn't had much of time together because of my injury in the run-up, so we took
so
that as a crew.
So the oar going into the water wrongly just once could so adversely affect your race.
It's like a massive handbrake. It's like putting the handbrake on, and it's like a massive brake, and until you can get that blade back out of the water, straight and back up, and then by that time, you're a couple of lengths down.
So no medals at all from London?
No medals in London,
And how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because if you ask me which was the best Olympics I went to, I would say London. Because it was an amazing games, and actually still to be part of that team that did so well, and we were so proud of our country for having put on such an excellent games, and actually to see a lot of my friends win medals in the rowing and gold medals in the rowing was still amazing. And so it wasn't just about the results for me, and a lot of people said as soon as we finished, I mean, obviously I was disappointed I couldn't add to the medals and I couldn't have had a home games medal, but a lot of people said, oh, was that worth it? 4 more years of training, with 3 weeks off in the summer, and that's it. And for 4 whole years of training full time for no medals, was that worth it? And without a second, I would say it was, because actually that's where God was still placing me, and that's a path I still chose to go down that path. And I don't regret doing that, because actually if you strip the achievements away, there is so much more, there's so much more underneath that. And for me, it was about, being where God had placed me for that season of my life, and the people and the relationships that I'd made, and just, the love and the people and everything within that was much more important than the medals.
Now, which means most to you? I think you've answered it already, the rowing or your relationship with Jesus Christ.
I'm not going to be taking my medals with me when I pass away. In the light of eternity, nothing could be more important than knowing Jesus.
But if I can't do this clearly, but if I could say, look, deny your faith, and I could turn back the clock and you'll get, 3 successive lots of goals, would you be interested?
No, not at all. No, my future is determined because of having a relationship with Jesus, knowing God. And, not only is that for the future, but actually it makes a difference and an impact day to day now.
And clearly it has in success and in disappointment.
Definitely. I mean, it's, my faith and my understanding of my relationship with God, who I am, who he is, that has been the anchor throughout my whole career. And it's been, it gives reason for me being, it gives reason to life, it impacts everything. So.
And Debbie, you work now with an organisation called Christians in Sport. Yeah. What exactly is that? What do you do?
So my particular role within Christians in Sport is working with other elite athletes. So actually, they looked after me, they supported me when I was in a team for 15 years, meeting up with me and encouraging me in my sport and in my faith, doing Bible studies with me, and just, affirming me and encouraging me as a child of God and in my security and my identity in that, really. So I do that now with a number of different sports. I work with female sports athletes, and we have a couple of males that work with the male sport athletes as well. So real privilege to be able to do that and be part of, it's still part of sport, but also, helping people to move closer to Christ. So.
Now, sorry, you showed us the Athens medal. Can you just show us the silver from Beijing?
I have lost that one.
Now, just a minute, you've lost it. Now, you've lost it before, but you got a new one.
Yeah.
So you've lost a new one now, have you?
I know. So I go around, I do lots of schools work and lots of, rowing in the community. And there was the first time I lost it, I was running for a taxi, it was raining, and I keep them in my socks, so, if it falls out, I'm not going to hear it bounce on the ground. And also, that particular time was, the next day, the road sweepers would have come along, so actually I don't think that anyone took it. I had a replica made by the British Olympic Association, and then so that was quite early on after I'd won that Christmas after, and then last year I was in Leeds, and then I was in Bristol, then I was doing a Songs of Praise episode, and then I was back in Leeds over the space of 4 days, and in that 4 days I had 2, and then I ended up with 1, so I'm having to get another one commissioned to be made as well.
You wouldn't like to get 2 made at the same time, just in case you lose one of them.
I think I just need to wear it the whole time, and then I don't lose it.
Debbie, at the age of 15, you trusted Jesus Christ as your Lord and Saviour. And that's a few years ago, not that many, but a few years ago. Have you ever regretted that decision?
No, never. There are times as a Christian when we feel like like God is really close, and we feel sometimes like he's a bit far away, but it's not about where he is. He's always there. It's whether I'm looking in the right direction and turning to him or not. So, once you know that the reality of God in your life, you can't deny that, and it's the most important choice you will ever make, and the most important thing that you will ever discover. So. And
you're wearing a ring at the moment. You haven't lost that, have you? No, that's an engagement ring. So are you engaged to a fellow rower?
No, actually, he hasn't been involved in the sport of rowing at all, which is probably a good thing.
Right.
He's been involved in the world of sport, but not in rowing.
Oh, well, it's great to have you. Really fascinating to listen to you. And you will stay, if you want, you'll sign books, but you'll chat, and can we feel the medals if we want?
I'm happy for that to be passed around. So we're
going to have a little break, and perhaps you can wander around, and then at the end you'll stay around. Shall we show our appreciation? Thank you very much. Great. Well, we are going to have a little break now, and I think refreshments are going to be brought round, so just indulge and bulge.